I'm going to have a go at processing this image of Carla, maybe using some of the new features um, in Photoshop CC 2021. The image is open in Lightroom. It's very warm. This is the raw file. You can see it was taken with a Sony camera, 100th of a second at f7.1 ISO 100 with a 70 to 200mm lens at 184mm. So I'm standing back and using the long zoom of the lens to, push in the perspective on the model's face, which is always a very flattering approach. So don't be in their face with a 50 to 70mm lens, etc. Use your zoom and come back, stand back from the model, and you'll get much better perspective. So color temperature, if I take the little color picker here and maybe click in the whites of the eye, it's too much. So let's just see, I've gone to 3.7. So I'm just going to click on temperature and use the plus arrow to go up 50 at a time. And I'm now going to do it by eye. And essentially, yeah, 3950. There's no, the numbers mean nothing really. It's how your camera reacts to the color temperature of either daylight or, in this case, studio flash. So I have already cropped it. I can show you the maybe I haven't. So that is the original crop. So I actually will stick with the original in-camera crop. In fact, I might just take it down a sliver on the top of the head just to make that look slightly more deliberate. That actually also puts the eye nicely on the third. I'll just crop up slightly from the bottom and in there to lose that little dark bit. I'm going to fix this in Photoshop. So we will go with that, and now I'm just going to bring up the shadows. So I click on shadows rather than wanging that slider. So it's a more precise way of working. So plus keys allow me to bring up the shadows. So I brought it up 50 on the shadows. You can see I've still got a little bit of warning in the blacks, so I'll just bring up the blacks and I'll give it a wee bit of vibrance, even though it's already quite colourful. I'll just give it an extra 5. So photo edit in Photoshop CC 2021, and there's the image open in CC 2021. Now the first thing is just to deal with any little blemishes. Carla does have little scars, I think, from chickenpox, so she is quite happy for you to either leave them there or remove them as you see fit. So Command J for a duplicate layer, and I'm just going to click on the spot healing brush tool, and I'm using the Wacom pen, so it's pressure sensitive, so I can apply more pressure for bigger blemishes or just keep the pressure light to deal with them. It means that I don't have to keep changing the size of the brush, which is something I would have to do if I was using the mouse for this little job. So there are actually very few blemishes to deal with. Might be a couple of little stray hairs. I'm just going to actually make the brush smaller. Oops, not that small. And I'm just using pressure to try to make the brush the same size as the hair. And we'll get rid of that one and that one and that one. Get rid of that. Just give that a fix. There's quite a dark hair there. Oops, I haven't quite mastered this Wacom pen yet. And last one. Command 0 makes the image fit the screen. So I can now turn that off and on to bring back the blemishes. I see a little bit catching my eye there on the forehead, so I'll just deal with that one. There we go. So now that I'm happy with it, I'm just going to flatten image. Next point is Command J for another duplicate layer. I'm going to bring out a wee bit more detail in the eyes. So image adjustments, shadow highlights. By default, it's quite HDR-y. It brings out far too much detail. So I'm just going to bring them back so that it doesn't look so HDR-y. That's applied to the whole image. So Option and Mask blacks it out. B Not with a soft edged brush, and certainly at the moment I would rather do this with the mouse. So I'm just zooming in, making the eye fit the screen, and I'm using the left square bracket key to change the size of the brush, and I'm painting at 100% flow and 100% opacity. I'm now going to hit 4 because I don't want to bring out as much detail in the dark iris as I did in the whites of the eye, and I'll just give that catch light a couple of passes to really bring out the detail on it. So let's see the before and after. So over to the other eye, B Not, paint at 100% in the whites of the eye, so it's slightly more dramatic in this eye. And I'm trying to remember what number I did in the iris. Was it 4 or 5? I'll go 4 for 40% opacity on the dark iris. And I'm not going near the edge of the outside edge of the iris. I like to leave that still dark. So before, after. So obviously way too much at 100%. So depending on how mad it looks, you could be going V7, but I'm going to have to probably go for V4 here, just to rein that back in again. Maybe even V3, 30% opacity. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Flatten image. I do have a little action which deals with the iris. Iris sparkle. So let's just see what we can do with the iris here. B3 just for 30%. So it's just adding a little more life into the iris. Command 1 is at 100%. Before, after. I'm happy with that. Flatten image. Now, I wish I had the shawl over all of Carla's chest and arm here, so this is a bit of a distraction here in the bottom corner, so that needs to be dealt with. And I'm going to use content aware fill for that, so I'm just going to make a rough selection like so. Now I'll just demonstrate to you. If I go shift backspace and fill it with content aware, it might not do a great job, so it hasn't. So I'm just going to, well, in fact, I'll just go Command Z to undo that. And instead, I'm still going to use content aware fill, but I'm going to use it in a different way. So edit content aware fill, and you can see the areas in green are the areas that it's going to read from. So I am just going to use the brush to basically refine the areas that Photoshop is going to look at. It's going to look at the areas in green when it starts filling this in. So I am basically telling it to look for red. I'm removing the yellow from that, and I'm taking it away from edges. So you can see over here on the right as like a preview of what it's going to fill it in with. I'm just going to click OK on that. And we've got giveaway edges, but that doesn't matter. I'm just going to put on a mask B, and I'm going to make black my foreground color, so I hit X to switch over to black, and I'm going to hit 7 for 70% and make sure it's a soft edged brush, and just allow the edges of what was there before to show. And I'm going to be darkening this corner anyway, so it doesn't matter. So I'm starting to get a wee bit there. I'm just going to paint back over that again. So before, after, and that is a better job than the got another edge there I didn't spot. So B7 soft edge brush. I'm just using the edge of a large brush just to affect this area here. Oops, I'm painting in white. I need to go X to paint in black. I was wondering. So you can just see the edge disappearing there. Just going to turn that off to see how far I can go with that. Yeah, I can go more here. Now hitting 3 for 30%. So I'm just going to flatten that and commit to it. And now I'm going to do my usual vignette. So I just draw out a marquee into actions, and we go to vignette at 70%. It's not having a massive effect, so I'm just going to change the blend mode to multiply. Now it does have a much better effect, and I'm going to go, it's at 70%, I'm just going to go V5 for 50%. And a flatten image. I could also try and be clever and select that part of the image, Command J for a new layer, Command T, and right click and choose warp, and just warp that material out towards the edge. Don't want to move that too much. In fact, I'll just cancel that. Command T, right click, warp, and I'll just pull it from the edges. Flatten image, and I'll just burn that bit in a wee bit again. So Command minus, I'm using the elliptical marquee tool, and I'm just allowing the edge of this elliptical marquee to select the area of the image that I want to darken. Whoops. If I play my action now, vignette at 70%, just put that into multiply mode, too much, V5, that's better. Flatten image. Now there is a brand new filter in Photoshop CC21 for skin softening, and it looks quite good. I just played with it the other day, so let's just go Command J for duplicate layer, and it's into filter, neural filters, and there it is, skin smoothing. what does it say? Adopts skin smoothing, adjusts and removes skin imperfections and acne from portraits. So let's see. Why is it not letting me do it? Turn it on, that's the answer. So you can see I haven't really used it before. Now by default it looks a wee bit too severe, for want of a better word. So I'm just going to reduce the blur to maybe, let's see, we'll go to 20. We'll go to 20. Yeah, there's nice skin pores becoming visible there. I'm quite happy with the smoothness. It was the blur that seemed to be the problem. Let's just see if we go minus on the smoothness. What does that do? Not a lot that I'm seeing. I'll just move that up to plus 20 and compare. This is what you have to do with new filters. Move the sliders and look at the screen and see if you can work out what they are actually doing. I didn't see an awful lot happening there with the smoothness, so I'm just going to leave it at 0. The blur certainly did have an effect. I'm going to actually bring it a wee bit lower again, maybe down to 16. And I'll just click OK on that once it's rendered. So you can see it comes in as a pretty mad mask, but it does a heck of a job there in skin softening, and I quite like that. So I'm just going to go V8 to take off 20%, and if I'm happy with it I will just flatten image. We haven't really an awful lot more to do. Even though I've already done a vignette, I'm going to do another one. We'll keep it a narrow border this time. Yeah, I'll just go with that at 70%. And Command J, filter, next software, Color FX Pro. And I'm going to go for dark and light and center. Just bring them back from their default settings on the basis that less is more. Now I do like the darkened background, so it's at -50, so I'm going to leave it at a fairly low value, like say -40. Center size, always 20 or less. I'm going to go dramatic on this, I'll go 10. Click on place center. Now you can see from a lighting point of view, this is the lit side of the face and this is the shadow side of the face, so I'm not going to go and plonk that in the middle of her face because then I'm ruining the lighting setup. So I'm going to click on this eye, which is the lit side of her face, and click OK. V67 takes a third off. And now look where your attention is drawn through the use of brightness values. I mean, it's absolutely brilliant, that little filter. Flatten image. Let's just see if we can enhance the face with a little manual dodging and burning. So burn dodge layer, click play, and that gives us a brand new layer filled with 50% grey in soft light blending mode. For some reason it is very slow, which is not like my computer, I have to say. Come on, we've got the circular wheel of death here. Not a lot happening. There we go. So it's just a layer in soft light blending mode filled with 50% grey. It has absolutely no effect until you make that either darker or lighter grey. So I'm going to go back to the Wacom pen. I'm going to go B Shift 02 That means my flow is reduced to a very small 2%. I mean, in fact, I might go 3, so shift not 3, and I'll leave the opacity at 30%. That means that 30% is the maximum I can paint to, but it's going to take a lot of painting even to get to 30% because the ink is coming out of the pen, if you like, very slowly at a rate of just 3%. So I'm painting in black, so I'm going to look for the shadows, and I'm just leaning quite heavy with this pen here. I'm bringing that across, doing the edge of her cheek and into this shadow area here. Let's just see before, after, so you can see the contouring that is applying. And I'll just go lightly around the edge of this shadow. I'm leaning quite light here on the edge of the chin, I suppose, just to contour that. Before, after, before, after. And I'll just give the forehead a bit of a darkening. And now I'll go and hit X to paint in white, and I'm just going to dodge that, certainly that Rembrandt triangle area there on the cheek. That's starting to get a wee bit obvious there using the pen, but I'll show you a good method of fixing that if you get it. So maybe there's a pen setting I need to watch out for there, because that's just a bit too severe. Might be easier at this stage for me to use the mouse, but essentially the problem is that the pen marks are showing, but I can just simply, I'm on the burn dodge layer, I can blur it. So if I go in with, say, 20 pixels and maybe blur that again until I lose sight of where I've been working. Before, after, and give it more of a blur. Before, after. So I'm enhancing the shadow side of her face, but that's at 100%. If I go V6-7, I'm taking a third off, so it doesn't matter that I went too far in places or messed it up even in one place. Once you're happy with it, flatten image. So manual dodging and burning, as you can see, is something that I'm not particularly good at, but I got away with it by blurring the dodge burn layer. I think it's more or less finished now. All we have to do is probably sharpen it. So Command J, filter, Nik software, output sharpener, and these are the settings that I go with virtually by default. Inkjet Auto Luster 2400 by 2400, and I don't click anything else. I just say OK, and we will just go Command 1 to be in at 100%, and that is just beautifully sharp. Flatten image, Command 0 to make it fit the screen, and let's just take a snapshot of where we are and where we started. So there's where we started, and there's where we finished. Quite a simple but remarkable change. So if I now go File, Save, that will be saved as a 16-bit TIFF file in Lightroom in ProPhoto color space, which is my preferred color space. So if you enjoy the video, please hit the subscribe button, and you'll be notified of any new uploads. It's quite slow to save. There we go. So it's now an edit TIFF file.